Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be all over the place between chasing trains on the S line to the Brooksville sub and even some very festive footage of the North Pole Express at the Florida Railroad Museum. For now, it's a warm December afternoon, and my friend Dakota and I are headed to the tracks around Vitus Junction to see what we can find. This outing would be a planned occasion where we'd go around and try to catch trains around the towns of Lakeland and Plant City, where Christmas lights and decorations are always in full display this time of year. However, coming into Vitus, our sights would unexpectedly be set north. We knew there'd be a northbound coal train arriving soon from the south, but noticing a distant train of tie gondolas moving away from us, we'd get back into the car just as fast as we got out and see what exactly this was. By Dade City, we'd catch up to the end of the train, moving relatively slowly, fortunately for us. US 98 has been under construction for what feels like ages here now, lowering the speed limit significantly and even changing the layout of the temporary road here. Not ideal for train chasing. With the radio still quiet, we'd come into Owensboro ahead of the train just enough to set up the cameras and hit record. And it's a good thing we did, as we'd be the only ones on the chase for this thing today. This is W95516, a work train stenciled from the Winter Haven Logistics Center to Baldwin Yard, routed up the S-line with a lunch break in Lakeland. We'd have no clue this existed and was even running, so with open roads and time to spare, we'd start the northbound pursuit here. "13 minutes later, I'd jump out at Rodell, in the middle of the St. Catherine double track. On track 1 here would be M453, meeting the W955 who's on the main line, or track 2 on the timetable. That coal train that was earlier mentioned would still be behind the work train, running on approaches, and also meeting the southbound 453 here, as they'd slowly follow 955 up the S-line. Jumping back into the car before the entire train had passed, both Dakota and I would not expect to catch up to the head end so quickly, although that's what happens when the road you're on has a speed limit of 60 and the parallel train is doing a good 37. I'm still confused about why this crew was going so slow on this normally 60-mile-per-hour stretch of the S-line, but I'm not complaining. The speed would work out great for some pacing footage, and what I believe to be some of the first of its kind, at least with this locomotive. Speaking about it, what exactly is this locomotive? If you're someone who pays attention to how CSX numbers their locomotives, you may notice that 1714 is out of the normal SD40 categories, and that's because technically it's not one anymore. Recently rebuilt with the body of an SD40-2, this is now called an SD23T4. With a GE 8-cylinder prime mover within the shell, this engine supplies 2,300 horsepower while running in accordance with Tier 4 emission standards. The classic cab is the same as its previous look, however large protruding radiators make this engine unique, and one of only 13 that CSX has ordered and is now operating. The 1714 is notable as it's the only SD23 with a cab-mounted headlight, every other one has a nose-mounted headlight, and for its unexpected KL13 horn, which is a Frankenstein of 3 different Nathan prototypes, also utilizing 2 horns, one facing south and one facing north, yet both being triggered by the same lever, which makes them sound at the same time. Between its clanky prime mover and dual horns, this thing is loud, and definitely one of a kind. We break off the pace just before Bushnell in order to get a quick shot at the northbound curve in downtown. And leapfrogging them one more time to a little dirt crossing just north of the Bushnell defect detector. With 9:55 finally out of the way, we'd move north as we knew that coal train was right behind him. Driving down Shady Brook Boulevard in Lake Panasoffkee, the short road would drop us off at the small bridge that CSX maintains over Shady Brook, a shot that I didn't know was accessible and one that I'm happy to shoot at. Once again, another spot that you don't see often or ever at all. Our northbound train would be EO41, coal empties out of Orlando's OUC power plant on the east side of town, and going back north to Evansville for another load. Although Orlando will still be around and receiving trains for the next few years, it's only a matter of time until these trains will also disappear, making this shot of EO41 on the S-line that much more valuable to us. After 41 cleared, we'd start our drive back south, stopping in Bushnell to meet up with another friend, and setting up for another northbound coming from Lakeland, this one carrying merchandise and phosphate from customers all over said town. M604 would be the symbol on this one, getting to us just after 4 p.m., relatively early, considering I caught this same train here around 8 p.m. on the drive back home from Orlando a few weeks prior. This night, 604 would run under the cover of darkness with a solo leader and a long train for Waycross.
604, 7590, clear southbound, northbound.
Filming the move as well would be area railfan Alan Quigley, someone who's known this area much longer than I have, and someone I'm glad I finally met. Notable on this 604 would be a sizable cut of flat cars mid-train, which according to Alan are the empties that return after those massive Lakeland-bound pipe loads are unloaded. We're unsure of the exact location and customer who takes these, but from the looks of it, they take a lot. Back to the present, we're now set up in downtown Plant City, where the Christmas lights and decorations are displayed beautifully throughout downtown as advertised. We'd eat dinner in McCall Park, where a good amount of walkers and locals would be, even on this Tuesday night before Christmas. Red and green would also be lit for the railroad, as I-044 pounds north from Tampa with a good train and trail, led by a solo leader once more, something that I hope changes soon. I-044's length is a direct testament to how busy the railroad gets during peak season. You can safely assume that all your purchased Christmas gifts at one point were on a train, and for those around Tampa, that's how lots of general merchandise and UPS traffic arrives every night and departs as we're seeing now. Into Lakeland we'd go after 44, as they would also have a Christmas setup and a park of their own. At Munn Park in historic downtown Lakeland, the A-line runs right through, making for a good place to catch trains in good light, especially after dark when traffic increases. First customer here would be L765, departing Winston northbound for Orlando just after 8 p.m., much earlier than usual. With rock for customers all over Orlando, 765 would have a clear main line to head north with a friendly crew. 765 would speed into the night as we'd move around the corner to Lakeland Junction, where an approach medium would light up the sighting signals for an approaching southbound. Calling as M603, our southbound train is routed to turn west here at the connection onto the Lakeland sub towards Winston Yard, its final destination, after a long afternoon of running south from Waycross. Of note on tonight's 603 would be his lead engine, another EMD, this one a more common SD70 variant, yet still very welcome nonetheless. I'm not sure why 603 would be taking the curve here so slow, considering most trains that take this same route usually pass by around 30 miles an hour, but with this speed and his massive 200-car train behind, it would take 8 minutes for 603 to clear our post and crawl down the hill into the yard. As many of you know, 603 is mixed freight for Winston and the Bowen Valley, bringing phosphate and sulfur for the Mulberry and New Wales area, along with cars for Seminole Gulf and Arcadia and Fort Myers, and general freight for Lakeland. Part of what makes up this one and the 604 are boxcars from Park Spur, where Saddle Creek Logistics joins a couple other customers just east of town in an area full of commerce. Hearing a train get signals to depart Park Spur, we'd park the car at the Lakeland Amtrak station as Y220 approached, with a hefty train of cars from Park and CSX's shoving platform right behind the leading GE. Something I don't think I would have ever seen around here.
17 CSXG 3327. South, approach meeting 6. Wait on the connection now.
.220 would end our night down here, but I'd be out the next day to see Dakota driving locomotives now, down at the Florida Railroad Museum. Willow, Florida, or what the railroad calls the North Pole, at least for the rest of this weekend. It's Wednesday, December 18th, and the final Wednesday of the Florida Railroad Museum's North Pole Express. The museum operates this holiday excursion Wednesday through Sunday nights before Christmas, with 2 round trips between Parrish and Willow offered each evening. I'd pick to come out on Wednesday, as on Mondays and Tuesdays, the train is cleaned and prepped for the next week's operations in Willow, meaning a deadhead move is required to stage the train in Parrish for boarding. I'd arrive to Willow around 2 p.m. this day, as our old friend 8330 would be started and warmed up for her day of running. The main appeal for this year's Christmas train is that the entire train is covered in lights, similar to what the Canadian Pacific puts together and shows off north of the border every winter. It's the first time they've done this down here at the museum, but it seems that the feedback has been extremely positive, so I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a tradition. With the train staged on the main line and cut in half, 8330 would have to grab CF7 number 204 and shove it into the yard before getting on the train itself as the solo southbound leader. This operation would be a quick and easy one, as 8330 now departs the yard solo again, ready to couple to the cabooses that make up the front end of this train. All 4 cabooses are also decked out in lights and decorations inside and out and are available for parties to rent out for the night. A good couple onto the caboose would prepare the cut to rejoin with the rest of the train, waiting north of the crossing with their 10 coaches and engine 1835 bringing up the north end.
How far do I have? You got about 1.5. Uno and a half. There we go. 1.5. That's more like it. Stretching. Good job. Take that as a good stretch. You go 3 steps, lace up my hoses, I'm going to walk the train.
After a good brake test, the train would be ready to head south to Parrish at 3:20. With 14 cars and a locomotive and trail, 8330 would be smoking it up as Dakota notches up the old engine to bring the train south.
And the 214 is back too. You're good. Okay. South, still Paris, 8330 out.
10 minutes later, I'd set up at Dickey Road as the train slowly approached. To the left is a brand new milepost, one that I believe was at one point here at Dickey, now added back in fresh paint, sporting the Seaboard's classic red rounded roof. Soon the train would arrive, and yes, that's Jingle Bells coming out of 8330. Coming into Paris just shy of 4 p.m., the crews of volunteers would get to work, preparing the train for the 5:30 departure time, with doors opening at 5 for boarding. By 5:10, almost all the parking space available at this property has been filled with cars, as each seat on the train is filled as well. Refreshments are served as the conductors walk the train, ensuring everything's in check and ready for their trek northbound to the North Pole.
Conductor City 1835. 35. All vestibules are locked up, ready to go. Ramp has been pulled. Let's go ahead and take it north to the North Pole, please. 35 going north.
Two blasts of the horn and the 5:30 excursion is off northbound to Willow, right on time. If you're wondering why there's no shot at Dickey this time around, my camera would decide to really screw up some night settings that I thought I had put on it, instead attempting to write footage on an SD card that couldn't handle it. So on to Willow, where I'd have plenty of time to figure out my settings and get ready for the train as it rounds the corner at FPL.
North Pole to 1835. Do you got a copy? Copy now. Go ahead. You are clear to come in. Coming in.
Right at twilight, the train would creep into the Willow yard limits as passengers slowly begin to disembark into the North Pole, a venue phenomenally set up by a few of the museum's finest, where dinner and festive refreshments are sold, and personal campfires are set up for passengers to sit by as they make s'mores and listen to Christmas tunes from the live band. I'd drive back to the south side of Willow as the train prepared to head south again to Parrish. Passengers on the 5:30 train are left at Willow, as the train heads back to Parrish to pick up the crowd of 7:15 riders and take them to Willow as well. In a couple hours, they'll make 2 trips to bring all the customers back to their cars at Parrish long after the stars have brightened this very dark country sky. And finally back at Dickey for a shot as the train comes south. This time my camera would do just fine, as I'd call it here and start my drive back towards Tampa after my afternoon trackside. A A week prior, I'd leave the house on a cold Tuesday night as I heard L781 departing Tampa with finally something other than CM44 biodiesels for power. With SD40-3 number 4322 leading the way north tonight, I'd set up at the Lake Hobbs Church in Lutz for the shot, as the train would appear right on schedule, an hour and 15 minutes after departing Yeoman Yard in Tampa. I genuinely appreciate all of you for watching this one, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. I don't know for sure what this next year will bring, but if it's anything like 2024, I know I'll have a good time and have plenty to post. Thanks again for sticking around till the end, but until we meet again, this is Christian from Multicolor Films. End of transmission.